When couples get into conflict, it's almost like they're trapped in the same repetitive cycle. It's really interesting how three major mistakes can totally derail their chances to connect.
Absolutely. It's almost as if they're caught on a merry-go-round of frustration. What are those key missteps exactly?
So, the first one is that classic you change criticism. One partner lists all these things the other should do differently, while completely overlooking any self-reflection.
Right, that blame game is notorious. And it's really like, hey, I'm perfect, now you solve all your flaws. That, as I see it, just sets up a defensive wall. Am I right?
Exactly. And then there's the second mistake, protesting louder. People get so incensed that they crank up the volume, move from mild annoyance to outright sarcasm and name-calling.
Yeah, it's like turning up the heat hoping that intensity will magically force change. But really raising your voice or, escalating with insults rarely leads to resolution, does it?
That's spot on. In fact, shouting and getting louder only creates a bigger backup for both sides. It's like trying to hammer two different nails with one hammer. Just chaotic.
It's counterproductive for sure.
And then the third mistake, flee and pursue. One partner sort of checks out, maybe by walking away or disengaging, and the other tries to pull them back in.
Oh yes, that push-pull dynamic can be so damaging. It almost feels as if one person's trying to escape and the other is obsessed with capturing every ounce of conflict. That tends to spiral, right?
Exactly. It creates a state of never-ending tension. One partner feels overwhelmed by being chased, while the other feels abandoned. Neither outcome is healthy.
True, it's like being in a tug-of-war that never ends.
So, with those mistakes in mind, the content really emphasizes stepping back and trying to see both sides. Instead of that you versus me mindset, embrace the idea that both partners have valid points.
Yes, I really like that notion of, yes and rather than yes, but. That approach encourages listening and, understanding rather than immediately throwing down blame. It sounds almost revolutionary in its simplicity.
It does. One must, surrender the binary thinking of right or wrong. It's about acknowledging that both interpretations of the conflict are valid.
That mutual acceptance seems like a real game changer.
The advice goes even deeper, recommending that couples should ask, what is this argument really about? Often, these conflicts hide deeper issues, sometimes linked back to childhood or past trauma.
Right. It's like peeling an onion layer by layer until you get to the core. That metaphor really fits. But sometimes, don't you think that diving into childhood traumas might be, a bit too heavy during a heated argument?
That's a fair point. It certainly requires, timing and perhaps even professional guidance. The idea isn't to burden the conversation with too much history, but to gently explore where those triggers come from.
I see that distinction.
And then there's the notion of staying in the conflict, not rushing towards a resolution. It suggests that a deeper, more sustainable resolution actually requires sitting with the discomfort without a hurry to exit the conversation.
Exactly. A slow and deliberate process like simmering a stew until all flavors meld, right? But sometimes, isn't it risky to linger too long in a heated situation? You might say, that there's a fine line between productive discussion and emotional exhaustion.
Yeah, that's the legitimate concern. The key is to manage that space with care, always keeping communication open without letting emotions overrun.
Certainly, finding that balance is crucial.
Another big recommendation is to become vulnerable. Instead of maintaining an armored exterior, partners are encouraged to share how they truly feel using I statements. Right, like saying, I feel anxious, instead of, you make me anxious.
That small change in language can, really transform the tone of a conversation, don't you think?
Absolutely. It's like flipping the script from confrontation to connection. It opens the floor for empathy instead of, finger pointing.
It's the kind of honesty that begs for understanding.
And then there's the constructive practice of finding similarities, reminding each other of common values and mutual goals, like both wanting what's best for the children or sharing and feeling overwhelmed, can redirect the conversation from blame towards cooperation.
Yeah, like focusing on what unites you instead of what divides you. It kind of turns the argument into a quest for, a shared path forward rather than an endless conflict, right?
Yes, exactly. And when you start seeing the conflict as an opportunity to learn about each other, a window opens to creative solutions that address the underlying issues.
Mm-hmm. It sounds refreshing when you put it that way.
Besides these core insights, there's also a set of tools and programs recommended. For instance, the Gottman Relationship Advisor comes in, offering digital solutions based on these principles.
Right, that tool is like a mini coach in your pocket. It seems really comprehensive, measuring relationship health, identifying strengths and weaknesses, then guiding couples with tailored strategies. But I sometimes wonder, can a digital tool truly capture the complexity of human emotion?
That's a valid critique. While no digital tool can capture the entirety of our complex emotions, it can serve as an excellent starting point, giving structured guidance.
Mm-hmm. I can see that, especially when professional therapy might not always be immediately accessible.
Exactly. And it's not meant to replace in-person counseling, but rather to complement it. There's also the Gottman Relationship Coach programs like Making Up After an Argument or Dealing with Conflict, which break down these processes into step-by-step exercises. Yes, and those exercises, especially the aftermath of a fight one, seem very practical.
For sure, they not only help process the argument, but also equip couples with strategies for, calming down in the heat of the moment.
Right. Understanding what happens in your body during conflict, like the flooding of emotions, and learning to calm yourself are part of creating a healthier dialogue.
I appreciate how these programs integrate both emotional and physiological aspects of conflict.
And another great point is the recommendation to let the conflict naturally reach a resolution over time. It's, a reminder that it's okay for the process to take several discussions, even over days.
Yes, creating a safe duration for discussions rather than a rushed fix really honors the complexity of deep conflicts. But I do sometimes wonder, what if couples get stuck in these prolonged discussions without resolution? Isn't there a risk of perpetual frustration?
That's a potential challenge. If there's no progress, it might indicate the need to revisit the earlier steps, like a reinvigorated practice of deep listening and vulnerability. It's all about staying in the crucible of conflict until a softer path emerges.
So it's a cycle of continuous mindful dialogue.
Yeah, it's like the relationship is a garden, and you have to keep tending to it even when the weeds of anger sprout.
Exactly, nurturing it regularly is what leads to real growth.
So, to wrap this up, the main takeaway is, avoid blaming with lists of, you need to change. Don't escalate by protesting louder, and steer clear of the fleeing, pursuing trap. Instead, aim for vulnerability, shared understanding, and a willingness to dig deep into the roots of conflict.
That definitely seems like a more sustainable approach to creating connection. And while digital resources like the Gottman Advisor and Relationship Coach are handy, they're really tools to support that deeper, human work of listening and empathy.
Exactly. They act like guiding lights, not replacements for the real messy work of connection. I mean, it's like saying you should have a map on a challenging road trip. It doesn't drive for you, but it definitely helps you see the way forward.
And that analogy is spot on. Well, this conversation has really shed light on how fundamental it is to switch our mindset during conflicts, from blame to understanding. It's not easy, but the insights here offer a promising path.
Exactly. By embracing our shared vulnerabilities and acknowledging that each partner holds pieces of the truth, you create room for growth. And that's what can really help any relationship flourish despite conflicts.
Absolutely. Here's to turning conflict into connection.